Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Stand clear.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks a lot for coming back for another episode of Dr. Homebrew. This one's a good one. We have one beer, and then we have a discussion. Now, before you turn away from the term discussion, because that can be very boring, it's not. We're going to be talking about hop water. And that's a topic that we've talked about a lot on this show, especially recently. And it's one that, like, I want to... I care about it, but I don't think I'll ever make it. And I don't know why.
Hot water?
Hot water, yeah. I've never heated hot water in my entire life. That's why I don't like tea or coffee, because it doesn't taste very good. It's like, why am I putting what is cold water?
You brew a tea guy.
What the heck? Yeah, well, yeah, you eat it. You don't eat loose leaf tea like that? That's how you No, hop water. Hop water.
What hops in the water?
It seems like one of those elixirs that's like super complicated, super hard to do. But we finally achieved the point where we can get an expert on. So you can welcome back to the show Mr. Vito DeLucci, who works at More Beer, and he went up and he did some video on a thing called YouTube, which is, I've never heard of that before. But it's about how to make hop water, and he's done a lot of research on it. So we're going to talk about hop water with him, or he's going to tell us, basically. He's going to tell me what to do. I need to be told things.
It's a lot better than Tub Girl, I bet.
Yeah. And then Vito also, of course, because this is what you got to do if you want to speechify for 25 minutes on the show, you got to give us a beer. So Vito, first of all, welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Stoked to be here.
Hell yeah.
Honor.
Good. Well, it should be, to be quite honest with you.
We just share content, back and forth. He interviews me about beer judging for his thing, and then we get him on here and interview him about whatnot here and just have some fun.
Yes. One of my favorite, what did you call it? YouTubery or YouTube? One of my favorite episodes was me and Brian Cooper talking about beer judging.
There you go. Is that good for you? Is that fun?
Well, I got a lot of people commenting that they saw my face when like, yeah, I also have a podcast, but yeah, no, I got like More Beer famous for a hot minute there. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, that is, man. That is a good type.
Famous.
That it really is. It really is. But Vito, what beer did you send me? Because I keep telling the guys the wrong style because I'm not very bright.
All right. So, yeah, you said I needed to give you homebrew, and I'm like, all right, I got something on tap. I have a Belgian dark strong that I brewed, and I should probably pull up the recipe, too, because I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yes, we'll talk about that after we get through the numbers, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, Belgian dark strong, high ABV, really malty, that's kind of the style. I don't know. God, Cooper, where are you? What is the style offhand? 26E? I don't know. Whatever.
26D. Yeah.
Oh, damn it. I'm fucking actually pretty good.
You were close.
Wow. Yeah, look at that, man. See, you know something every now and then. You got to, go with your gut.
I got my certified pin.
I got my recognized certificate somewhere, my card. I don't know.
You got to get you above a 70, man.
Dude, no. I've told this story too many times, but like I'm not built for beer judging. Like the act of beer judging and doing flights. My brain gets overtired after 6 beers, and I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this. But
palate fatigue and brain fatigue is a real thing for sure.
Yeah, I can't do it. Like judging long shot one year, I was like, I thought we were done 12 beers in. I'm like, all right, because we took a break. I'm like, this is really cool. They're like, you're not staying for the second flight? I'm like, no.
These days, a lot more comps are a little lighter on the flight sizes. I mean, I judged a 3 beer flight on Saturday. It was fun. Wow. It was just, these are the 3 that floated to the top here.
And I think that's, I'll use this as a commercial or a plug for BJCP certification and becoming a judge, because the more judges we have, the less we have to fuck over JP and give him 12, beers over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
many hands makes light work, I guess is where I'm going.
Yeah, that's true. I support it and I encourage everyone to do it. I know my parameters. I know I'm not built for it. I'm built to talk about it. Those who can't do teach, and that's basically what this show's about. Except I don't do anything. I don't know. Speaking of doing stuff, Cooper, you have some exciting news, don't you?
Well,
you want to share with the class?
Yeah, you were talking about your, the certified pen. I've got actually on the day that I achieved. Well, something I broke my Grandmaster pen. I don't know if it's a sign of things to come, but the Grandmaster part came off of the cup, and I was talking to a buddy about it. He's like, "Oh, yeah, that happened to mine too. Buy yourself some JB Weld." But on the day I went to a competition, I judged 3 beers out of it was like 4 panels of judges cube judging on some light lagers, some European light lagers. Then I earned the final half a point I need to make Grandmaster 2.
Hey!
Congratulations. That's very exciting.
I don't get a new pin, but I'm going to take the JB Weld to this thing and fix the
like the Liberty Bell.
But it took a lot of grading and service points to the organization, but
how many points
to judge.
How many points do you need to go to from 2 to 3?
It's 100 per level, but half of them have to be from judging. So I've got way more than the 200 points already that I need to hit level 2.
Yeah.
But it's, you need the judging points too. During pandemic, I probably would have been there already, but I didn't get many chances to judge. So and they don't count this as anything.
They should. This is education. This is service to the industry or the queen or whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean? These should count at least for a quarter of a point or something. Come on.
Seriously.
You'd probably be Grandmaster 5 if you count all of our shows.
Right.
Yeah.
Was the queen in the BJCP?
I think I think so. I think that's what did her in ultimately.
Honorary Grandmaster 10.
Yeah. They just ran her into the ground, man. You know what I mean? Like, I can't judge another flight. I refuse. I simply refuse. Camera kicked her out. It was weird. Okay, well,
so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man. Congratulations. That's really great. I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm happy to have been propelling you forward this whole time. You just didn't know about it.
We had a very nice best of show judging with Paul, the brewer from East Brother up in Richmond.
Oh, cool.
Really nice dude to judge with.
Yeah.
And,
nice.
some of their higher level judges in there to work with. And so it was the World Cup of Beers competition. And that's appropriate for me too, because that was actually the first competition that I entered way back in 2003. I got my first ribbon in was the World Cup of Beer. And so I'm kind of a full circle moment in a way.
It. Cool, man.
It's like I went there and I met, Nate Smith, Mike McDowell. I met, Lee Shepherd. I met a lot of people there. Yeah. And a lot of people that I still know to this day. And some I wish were still with us, but we're still here doing the thing.
Nice. I love it, man.
He's why I started judging was Lee Shepherd. Me and Cooper talked about this at length in that thing, but yeah, definitely shout out. And didn't he used to do the show as well?
Yeah, he was the original co-doctor.
Yeah.
So
such a nice guy, such a smart guy, just such a wealth of knowledge, and just always someone fun to hang out with and judge with. And yeah, he is definitely sorely missed.
Yeah.
My wife's a great judge of character and she loved him. Yeah. So every time we went, he was just a great dude. Love that guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's dig into this beer, huh? That's what Lee, I'm sure, would say something sarcastic about it.
Yeah.
So this is a Belgian dark strong. Now, I always ask everybody, is this something you've made before?
This is my second time brewing this style and this recipe. I iterated slightly on it. So brewed it last year. For a coworker and friend's wedding. Shout out to Joe Small, the Small wedding. We brewed this for his wedding because it was their first date. They had the and it's escaping me. The 12 ABT 12.
St. Bernardus.
St. Bernardus. Thank you. So that was the very first. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was their very first beer they had on their first date. So he wanted to brew a clone of that. So to calibrate you guys, that's kind of where we're shooting for.
Okay.
Some differences, on this batch, I changed the yeast because I was using, wanted to use a product that we're trying to help promote and stuff like that. And then also one of the, I also changed the grist slightly a little. And then one of the things I did, I like to ferment it a little lower. So you're not going to get a ton of phenolics from it or anything like that, because I'm not a huge fan of that. So, but it's definitely a Belgian yeast. So fermented a little lower. I think it came in at
hold on,
10.5%. Oh, sorry.
Don't tell the guys, because we gotta judge it first, or they gotta go through their sheet first. How dare you?
You guys already did the sheet, right? Or are you going to do it right now? They did the sheet,
but I'll tell you what, these guys are notorious for adjusting on the fly. That's what they do. So
based on what I say, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally
your homebrew prerogative."
Yeah, based on how nice you are, right? They're like, "Just fuck this guy, man. We're gonna take him down a peg. This is a motherfucker." So it's interesting, and before we get into, I do want to ask your professional opinion. Do you see this style coming back, making a little tiny resurgence?
No. You don't, no.
Because I'll tell you,
amongst us right here, sure, it'll never go away, right? But like, I know a lot of 20-somethings that are drinking, and no, I don't see it.
Okay,
I don't know. Maybe
not even commercially, because this is probably what
wrong.
This is I would guess the fourth or fifth beer we've seen of this style in the last 6-8 months, something like that. It's like we've seen it more recently than previously.
Your audience is us, right? Is super beer, it's making a resurgence amongst us middle-aged
I don't know,
beer drinkers.
Well, see, but you get like a lot of old heads like us who've been doing it forever, and you get a lot of people who've been doing it for a couple of years that are still making this style. So it still perpetuates. Yeah. I'm just curious. A lot of times you see the homebrew side sort of lead the demand in the consumer world, but I wonder if lagers are sort of dominating that.
With the shout out to Spring Brews this weekend, having poured beer at Spring Brews many times. Yeah, the people that are like, give me your highest ABV, they
dorks.
Maybe
in other words,
maybe it'll make a resurgence because people are like, 11%, but I don't know.
Smash me in the face.
Smash me in the face.
Kill me. I feel like maybe what's happening is that people are having to start doing what they used to back in the 90s and early aughts, where you couldn't find a style. So you had to make it yourself.
Yes. Interesting.
And that's, I think, what people are having, because, hey, I like IPA, but, IPA has kind of swallowed the entire craft beer world.
It jumped the shark years ago, brother, for sure.
And it's, frankly, and like, was it Whole Foods? Like, Whole Foods has become the place you go to get, here's some Belgian beer. I hadn't seen a Belgian beer anywhere in a store other than maybe Total Wine for a long time. And, here's some... So here's some delirium tremens at Whole Foods.
Yeah, I love a Whole Foods beer cooler, dude, for sure.
Me too. But it's
right,
just
we're
kind of back there, but we used to be 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
because that's why a lot of us started homebrewing, right? Was because the beers that we wanted to drink weren't available. And with everything being driven by marketing and what sells, give me more IPA, give me more IPA. I think you're onto something 100% for that.
Yeah. Well, I did it for chicks. I did it for this one particular chick. So
because that works.
It did. So
it did? Okay.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right. What are you going to do? And then, by default, it happens. Anyway, Cooper, why don't you start us off? My door's open. Hopefully my wife doesn't hear me.
Uh-oh.
It's a long time ago, honey. Okay. Cooper, let's go, buddy.
I'm pouring this again. All right. Had a nice hiss upon opening, kind of lively. The fill level and everything was fine. We're judging this as a 26D Belgian Dark Strong. What hit me up front, I just called it complex buttered booze and raisins. Greet the palate upon first sniff. Moderately high alcohol. It seemed clean, not quite solventy. The ale esters are fairly high here too. But there's, raisin and plum, date, a lot of darker fruit character in there. The malt is rich with a dark bread crust-like character. Not getting any DMS or acetaldehyde, but the jury's kind of out on the diacetyl, a little bit of buttery kind of quality to it to me. But it hit me in the nose mostly up front, and then in the flavor, I didn't get it as much, but I'll get to that. So yeah, it was a lot to take in up front. I just had to sit there and kind of acclimate. This is a big BDS, it seems like to me. It seems very big. I also thought
it's like a
getting
BBL.
little, not quite solvent, but almost like an acetone-like edge to or like a nail polishy, but not like over the top. Just a kind of background note of that in there. The beer is very dark brown, which it's very dark for the style. Usually these things stop at kind of a lighter brown, usually more in the coppery brown kind of range. The beer looks clear. You can see at the corners, it's got this kind of reddish burgundy highlight. The head, it was a pretty low head. It formed and then it quickly faded away. Fine tan colored bubbles, just stuck around for a short while. And as I report, it kind of does the same thing. It fades to a tiny, tiny collar around the edge, but still 2 out of 3 for appearance, just a little on the dark side. And can't give a half a point. We'll just stick at 2.
It's Vito. You can give a quarter a point. I don't care.
Okay.
I'm running this competition. 0. I allow it.
A 0.25 points for appearance. No.
Take points away.
In the flavor.
Negative.
This thing is boldly malty. Dark bread crust, over the top dark bread crust. And then there's a light spice in there that makes it hint at kind of the pumpernickel, like the sweetness with the little sharpness you get of a spice combining together.
Pumpernickel.
That Belgian ale.
What a good descriptor, Coop. Look at you, Grandmaster.
Spiciness. It's just, and then I wrote the word boom. It's just like, it just has a lot going on. Boom. It also, the alcohol is again at a medium high level. But the presentation it's a little sharper and it's massive overall. It's just it just seemed like too much to me for a not very subtle style to start with. It is very, very strongly malt balanced. Finishes rather sweet, raisin and plum in the aftertaste with a little spice, and the butter again is lower here. It's very subtle here in the flavor, and it might have just gotten covered up by other things as it warms here too. And I don't know, but yeah, it's then the mouthfeel. It's very full bodied. It has a little higher heat than I expected. It's than the smooth alcohol warmth that would be normal for the style. This is going back into the back of the throat and all the way down in the chest. It's not burning heat. But it's very strongly warming. The carbonation is low. It's not creamy or astringent, but it's hearty. A little bit rough. It's just in that it's kind of biting, and it's just a challenging beer to drink. I'm not trying to guzzle it here either. I'm just sipping it. But 3 out of 5 for mouthfeel.
I feel like 5 years ago you would have chugged it. You're getting old.
Yeah. I might have. Well, my sidecar is an NA, so there you go.
Mine too.
Nice. Overall, this is quite a bit to take in. The ingredients, the malts and the hops used here seem really good, and the balance of the recipe is decent, but it just leans too heavily towards this dark and boozy side of it, and that's more what I'm noticing in the beer. The alcohol and the body seem, very high, where it should be just a little more deceptive and quaffable. I would dial everything back just a little bit and work to keep the yeast, and starter. I'm sure you use the starter for it. Just keep that as happy and as well controlled, temperature, O2 wise, the volume, the vitality, and choice of the strain selection. And also, another thing, a shot of ALDC is a nice insurance policy. Sometimes if you ever have a beer that's going to be kicking out a lot of things early in fermentation, that enzyme wouldn't hurt either, just to have a little insurance policy and avoid that buttery, the butterscotch, buttered booze kind of a thing that's going on. I still think it's a very good beer. It landed at a 31 for me. So I'm going to stay there. And I like you, Vito. It's a hard beer to brew well, and it's
And you didn't do it, is what he's
saying. A little
saying.
challenging for me to drink. I've had other beers of yours that I've liked better, but I will still keep sipping this. So thank you for sharing it.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Well, yes. I have to ask, because I have to ask every guest this. Are you a member of a homebrew club in our area, perchance?
I am. It's the Diablo Order of Zymerical Enthusiasts, better known as DOES, is my local homebrew club.
I believe I've heard of you guys. And at some point, I'm going to start homebrewing more again and join DOES, because you're my local club.
Keep hearing
this. It's neither here nor there. But I like this beer a lot. Cooper and I always text before the show about our scores, and I've done a little adjusting on the fly, because when I judged it, a lot of times, just the way life works out, I'm judging these beers an hour or two before the show, and then right out of my fridge. And that's not always the optimum way to judge, but I like this one a lot. I've made a Belgian Dark Strong several times before in the past, and it's never worked out as nicely as this one has. Aroma, I thought it was complex and interesting, richly malty, like Cooper had said. Fruity notes, undoubtedly from fermentation. That's the classic Belgian yeast profile. I got plum and raisin, but those fruits aren't dominant. And sometimes these beers can come across a little oxidized, because you oftentimes have to ferment them for a while, you store them for a while. There's no oxidation here at all, which to me, kind of puts it ahead of a lot of commercial styles that you get in the U.S., because by the time a Belgian Dark Strong has made it to California, a lot of the times, it's been on a ship, it's been on a rail car, it's been hot, it might have been months since it got brewed. And they're not always at their best. So this is, no, I didn't get off aromas. I did not get the butter that Cooper got. I didn't get hops. I didn't get off aromas. I didn't get butter.
For me, it was just right at the very beginning. It was hit me buttered booze.
And I'll tell you, I'm right in the middle about diacetyl sensitivity. I'm not blind to it. I'm not super sensitive. I'm right in the middle of that bell curve, and I just didn't get it.
The butter that I get isn't like diacetyl butter. It's like a hot buttered rum.
Yeah, I'm getting less. Yeah, a toffee like is a good descriptor for it. It's not over like artificial butter flavor in the popcorn aisle.
No.
I get a little toffee on this.
I didn't even write the word diacetyl on my sheet, but I just buttered booze and less buttery in the flavor. Yeah, and I just checked the diacetyl, but I'm not even sure if it's there.
Next time you have a hot buttered rum, this is the aroma and some of the flavor that I get out of that.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I've never had a hot buttered rum to my knowledge.
Oh, it's great. They're awesome.
I don't remember that I ever had.
The Dickens Fair, man. Dickens Fair in San Francisco.
Fucking Trader Vic's, baby.
I've been to Dickens Fair numerous times, and I've never had the hot buttered rum. I guess I'll have to next time.
The mulled wine. Always hitting the mulled wine.
Oh, God, no. Mulled wine sounds disgusting. Hot wine with spices. That sounds just gross in every way.
It's just like a warm sangria, man. That's all it is.
You're not making me want to drink it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's go back to Shar, because I really like where he's going.
Yeah. So I gave you for aroma, I get 11 out of 12. I thought the aroma on this was fantastic. It wasn't. I also didn't pick up a ton of booze when it was cooler. And even as it's warmed up, I've let this sample sit out since probably about 6 o'clock, 6:15. There's almost 2 hours. It's not super hot or cold in my house, normal in my house. If it was going to be boozy in the aroma and be harsh, it was going to be harsh now. And I'm not getting that harshness now. So 11 out of 12 for aroma. I struggled with appearance because this is very dark brown, almost black. And I swear the style, and I even made a note, the 2021 guidelines call for a lighter color than this. I swear that back in the day, this would have been an acceptable Belgian Dark Strong. I could be wrong. And it's also, things change, and maybe we didn't know as much about how these beers should have looked. In 2000-ish, when all of our examples were all stale, and probably, staling doesn't help things stay light in color. So I don't know. I wrestled with giving you a 2 or a 3. I gave you 2 points. It's very clear. It's got a large, persistent tan color head. And it's hard for a beer with this much alcohol to have a head that stays in place. So that was really well done. Flavor is complex out of the gate. It's richly malty without being toasty or roasty. A lot of the times you look at a beer this dark and you expect, Guinness-ish, something roasted or some character like that. There's none of that here. Medium fruit character. I got sort of a plum and a little bit of cherry from fermentation. Low ethanol sweetness is smooth and not harsh. It does get a little bit, as it's warmed up, the alcohol is a little bit more prominent. And I don't know that I go so far as to call it boozy, but it's more, the flavor is a little bit more like you'd expect for a beer that's, a 10%-ish Belgian style beer here. Let's see, there's some ethanol sweetness. It's smooth. It's not harsh. Even as it warms, it's more noticeable, but it's not harsh. That's often a flaw with these commercial and homebrew, that the fermentation is too hot. Something happens. You get, the fusels, you get harshness even in the ethanol. That's not present here to me. It's very well attenuated. You started to give us your, OG final gravity and all that. I'll be curious what you got this down to, because man, it sure drinks like you got this down a long ways. Finish is long, smooth, and malty. 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel 5 out of 5. Medium body, medium carbonation. There's warming. This is one of these where you see that warmth in that line for mouthfeel. And if someone is not writing down warming or I was warmed, then you know that you're not going to be getting a very good score on that. Neither creamy nor astringent. Overall impression, I gave it 9 out of 10 for a total of 42. I did adjust a little bit from what I had texted Cooper. Yeah, hey, we're able to adjust on the fly a little, just because as it warmed up, there were a couple of things that changed. I still stand by the fact this is better than a lot of commercial examples of this beer style that I've had. I liked it, I guess, maybe a lot more than Cooper. Cooper didn't hate it, but I like it a lot more.
You're within 11 points now. You're not within the 7.
Yeah,
10 be within 7. Yeah.
So
we have some work to do.
You have to kiss it. You have to kiss during the break and determine your winner.
I now have a
that's our Dr. Homebrew OnlyFans.
Yeah.
You sign up for that for only $20 a month for hot judge on judge action.
Yeah, stubble on stubble.
I think I'm making myself want to throw up a little bit. Malt is rich, fermentation's fruity. There's a lot of great flavor. Excellent example of style. 42. I really liked it. Thanks for sharing, Vito.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. I just have a couple things, and then I want to get into the recipe. So hang on everyone's Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back.
What's up, homebrewers? Hey, let me ask you a question. You spend a lot of time making your beer taste the way you want it to, right? Some of you even send beers into Dr. Homebrew for feedback. Well, the next logical step in your creativity is to craft some labels for those beers. And there's nobody better at creative labels than Grog Tag. Their easy-to-use designs let you turn out some pretty amazing stuff like labels, bottle caps, coasters, even six-pack carriers with minimal effort on your part. They have a range of label sizes that fit any vessel you can think of. Bottles, cans, growlers, kegs. GrogTag has you covered. Head over to grogtag.com today and check out their line of amazing, fully customizable templates and get your beer looking its best. Grog tags are water resistant, reusable, and will have your naked bottles looking great in no time. That's grogtag.com, and be sure to use code BNARMY at checkout to save 10% on your order.
Now, back to the examination.
All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. Yeah, I wanted to just chime in. Yeah, hot butter rum, we already covered that. Cooper, I agreed with you that I think it feels like there is too much. If you can go Belgian quad, this would probably be it because there's a lot of flavor. It is a little overwhelming. It's a little too hot for me personally. But I think the flavors are really cool, and I like that buttery rum. It's almost like there's rum in here because you got those darker raisin flavors. You got the higher alcohol.
I thought rum too, right up front. I was like in the nose, like buttery and rum, but it's not like, again, the buttery diacetyl. It's more like just the buttered booze, but it's like toffee like, or something,
it's really
something
cool
on the malty side.
It's very unique. And there's a lot of banana I get. up front. But none of it's bad, you know?
The malt's complexity comes out a little more even, and as it warms, and it seems less booze-like because it's just warmer, and there's a lot else there balancing with that, all the big fruitiness and the
I would say
alcohol.
say it's just a little hot for me. Otherwise, I think it's pretty good. Anyway, Vito, I would give it
some like it's hot.
36, which sort of is my average. I think that's kind of what I give everybody. All right, Vito, let's hit your recipe up, bud.
We were saying it off air. I'd give it 35 to 38 would be, high end 38, 35, I think, all day. If I was judging this. But yeah, let's run through the recipe. All right. So we got 31 pounds of Viking Pilsner malt. So that's 78% of the grist right there. Then really the majority, then we're getting into candy sugar. So we've got 2 pounds of D45 Belgian candy sugar. Then we've got,
is it the syrups or is that the candy?
God, what's the brand? The candy sugar. D180, D45, D90 from who the heck makes this stuff? The like Mylar packs of Belgian candy sugar.
Okay. All right. Not the syrups. Interesting.
Yeah. No, it's a syrup. It's a Mylar kind of with the little twist top on there.
Yeah. Okay.
Common stuff that's been around for years. Yeah. The Belgian candy sugars. Yeah.
Well, look, when I was
candy syrup. Thank you.
Candy syrup.
Belgian
that's what I'm saying. Right. That's right. Because I wanted to differentiate that because when those hit the market, it was like game changer. Yeah.
So it's the Belgian candy syrup, not the rocked stuff.
Right.
It's not the rocked up stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, where was I? So that was the 2 pounds of that, then 2 pounds of D45, then 2 pounds of Caramunic, Wireman Caramunic, and then 1 pound of acidulated malt, just for pH, really balance there, mash pH. Then 1 pound of D80 candy syrup, and then 8 ounces of Carafa 2 D-Hus, the Carafa 2 for color. So that's the grist.
That's a lot of flavor.
That's a lot of flavor.
That's a ton for just like the ingredient list. That was wild.
Yeah, that's why me and Brian like it. Brian Shar to be clear.
Exactly.
It's quality.
And a bunch of people at a wedding. Hallertau hops, Hallertau Magnum, Saws. Not much. The hops are secondary, very very second string to it. Let's see, high calcium chloride, to get in the body, get into the water. Start with RO base, calcium chloride, Epsom salt, gypsum, calcium chloride, Epsom salt, gypsum. I could pull up the exact water profile here, but here we go. Chloride level 150, calcium level 133, magnesium 10, sodium 8. The very, more body, trying to get that kind of, fluffy, pillowy mouthfeel, more sulfate to chloride ratio. As for the yeast, this was Cellar Science Monk yeast, which I'd never used before. On the previous batch, I had done White Labs. I forget which one it is. They're Belgian Saison yeast. So this was a new one for me. Not knowing it, I opted to pitch at 64 and hold it at 64 with a 1 point differential. So holding it real low for the first 48 hours and then upped it to let it free rise up into 72 and held it there. This was a slow, it got down to 10, 12 is where it finished at. So it's pretty dry.
Jesus
for this style.
Christ,
for this style.
What was the
really
OG
dry.
again?
Let's see, 1092.
Fuck out of here, man.
Yeah.
What are you, like an alchemist or something? Come on, that's insane.
Yeah. Big beer, which I think, honestly, I say it hides it well. Like I drink a snifter of this though. I'm not drinking a pint, and a snifter of it. It's good. It's dangerous because it's like, it is so, to me, it is fairly balanced, with sweetness and with complexity to where I enjoy it personally. So I think it hides the alcohol pretty well, but that's the specs on that side of the house. Yeah, the yeast, I kind of like the expression on the last one more than this. This, definitely has but that's really malt driven, that like raisiny, those fruit, some of that's esters, but I think it's esters from the yeast, from the malt complexity that it's adding to
right.
it, that kind of, that's driving that, the thiols from the malt side of things.
Yeah. Well, and the sugar too. I mean, that sugar it has a flavor. That's why we use it.
The sugar has a flavor, and it definitely has a caramel toffee. I mean, it's big time caramel toffee. So I think that's where we're getting. I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely use ALDC in all the batches. So I don't think it's a diacetyl thing, by any means. But
no.
You can't. The judge don't know that. The judge judges it how they judge.
Yeah. I did not hate this beer, and I did put it in very good territory. Now, and in a competition, if I was judging with these guys as a judging trio, I'd probably be the guy that would like, okay, I see where you guys are at with this, and come up a few points or so. So we're within the 7, and
well, you and I are within 7. We'd have to fight Brian Shaw.
No, I'd probably end up coming down and.
No, we'd have to beat him up.
Because I was a bit enthusiastic when it was a little bit cooler, but it's still a really good beer. I just like it a lot still.
Yeah.
But
I think mid-30s, is
one judge is
fair.
The outlier, you can, get them to come around, and you don't have to browbeat them. And,
see, I think you get more judges if it would be like a knife fight.
Would you get more
in the old ways? Yeah, absolutely, man. There's angry people out there in the world.
3 because then there's always an outlier. Unless every now and then, if everybody's on tilt, I guess you could go from like 20 to 40 between like 3 people. But usually you got 2 people that are within 7, and somebody's way off than their own. Yeah. And it's nice to know that maybe you're the one that's on tilt in a particular beer.
Yeah, I think that one time I believe it was when I was proctoring an exam with John Watson, and we had a Belgian Dark Strong in there, and it was really, dark like this, but I really liked it. But he judged it a fair amount lower than me. It was just too dark and too much. And that I've gotten used to that for that style, it needing to be lighter, or it's not quite that balance right.
Yeah.
So more of the
software's got it at 22.5 SRM, and I think the max for the style is like 20, right? So it's around there. So it's on the high end for sure.
Just a little past the heart.
During the break, I pulled up some old style guidelines, and in the 1999 BJCP guidelines, this would have been acceptable. Dark brown was okay. So,
see,
25 years ago, this would have been, you would have gotten 3 points for appearance.
I don't like that was 25 years ago. I really don't.
Started there, but then I love the 90s.
It is shocking that 1999 is 25 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, because you say 99 and go, okay, then that's probably like, 8-9 years ago.
Yeah, just last week. Yeah.
Well, party like it's that.
Yeah. Well, Vito, this is normally the time of the show where we say if you have any questions for the judges, but it seems like you like this beer, so I don't know. Do you want to?
No, I don't have any questions. I mean, pretty much, for the most part, agree. I think it's a mid-30s, maybe at the best high 30s beer. That's what I would judge it at too. So, totally agree with that.
As it warms, it is a little smoother in the nose and the mouthfeel. So I'll come up to a 34. How's that?
Hey, there you go, man.
Bully. My friends.
Cooper's easy to bully. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would like to say is, what I would like to see this come. Well, maybe that's a better topic, is how to get it into style. Maybe cut back on a little bit of the higher SRM sugar, because that'll take down some of those, like a lot of those rummy, fruity notes.
Yeah, some of the darker sugar, you might not even need the carafa, just get rid of that.
Yeah, good
lighten
point.
It up a little bit, but there is a lot of different rich raisiny and fruity flavors in here coming from those candy syrups. And
to give you guys, because this wasn't one recipe that I developed myself. So what we did was, he had a target. So then I went and I looked at a bunch of clone recipes for the ABT, and then I'm like, okay, here's common themes amongst them. and kind of just made this, by propagate, or, looking at several data sets, and then like being like, okay, cool, this should get us close to that. So that's how this recipe was developed.
Nice.
Because like I said, it's not one I've brewed before. And
Vito's making
we did a
excuses,
side by
guys.
side with the original batch, the one that was served at the wedding. This is a rebrew that I brewed for NHC this year, and I can see it. I probably shouldn't even enter it at this point.
Oops.
No, but with the original one, we did a side by side, and it was pretty damn close. It was obviously fresher, a little sharper, things like that. Because like as Shar alluded to, like the other one's got to come across the Atlantic and spend some time in the bottle. So it was different, but over time, I think we still have bottles of those. It's pretty damn close from that original recipe. Again, I used a whole different yeast on this. I changed a couple things. I think I took out some of they were getting a little trickier on the malts. I went real simple on the malts on this one. They were tricky on the candy sugars, and I kept that trickiness in there because, tricky.
Yeah. I think the yeast is cool. I would be interested to see it on like less complex beers, or even like a hef. It feels like it'd be a good Hefeweizen, because there's a banana, but it's like a banana clove balance that you don't really find a lot. I wonder if it's part of that yeast profile. I wonder if it's easy to hit that because the making the German hefs, it can be usually one way or the other, usually more banana because people don't really understand it. But it's interesting yeast though. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it definitely has some character. And even with trying, like I said, to really wrangle that yeast, pun intended, down in temperature, I think it's still kind of expressive. I can only imagine how expressive it would be if you up that temperature.
Oh yeah, that'd be a fun experiment. Crank it, just let it go. 75, baby. 80, let's go.
Let's do it. Quebec style.
Okay, let's take another quick break. We'll come back. We'll learn a bit more at hop water. I got some questions for hop water and, that kind of stuff. So hang on, everyone. It's Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Games.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but we're going to have to pour you out.
Back to Dr. Homebrew.
All right, thanks for sticking around, everyone. All right, Vito. Now, we've been, on this show, we've been having a lot of hop water lately. And by a lot, I mean 2. But I like to talk about it because it's one of my favorite beverages, to be honest with you. Once Lagunitas dropped their hoppy refresher, I understood everything about it. It was great. It was awesome. But it's hard to make because I've had several different versions of hop waters, and it feels like nobody can get it right. Lagunitas has that sort of like thing on lock. So you did a video with More Beer. You went up there and you interviewed everybody and figured out how to do it. And then you said that you've done some research and you've done your own hop water. So I thought maybe you can come on and talk to us a little bit about what makes a good hop water. How do we do it at home that doesn't taste like we just took lawn clippings and put it in seltzer water?
Yeah,
that would be nice. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely can get you there. Check out the video. First of all, we'll start there, right? Go to More Beer's YouTube channel, subscribe, and check out the video.
Smash that motherfucking
like button. But then also wrote an article for BYO. So shout out to BYO that went in depth in there. And I actually did some more analysis. Then this was post the interview. So It got my gears going. But let's back up for a second and go to I made hop water before I interviewed those guys. And I was kind of the mindset of you add some hops to water, like you're saying, just how much more could there be to it, right?
It's in the name. It's like banana bread.
Hops and water.
You put bananas in bread. It's fucking simple.
So reached out to them. Luckily, my buddy works in their R&D brewery and got me, plugged in with Jeremy and the whole team there. So then really it was eye-opening for me. So let's start with the water, right? Because that's like the biggest thing. So the very first thing we want to do is use de-aerated water. Boil your water. Start with that if I'm going to make hop water at home. So step 1, boil water. Step 2, ideally have an idea of the TDSs, total dissolved solids in your water. So be able to measure your water. If you can't, start with RO and build it up, or just fuck it, use your own, your water. But ideally what we're trying to do is like I was mentioning earlier, a high calcium chloride level to kind of, that's what they're doing. I think it was 300 parts per million is what they're shooting for on the chloride to sulfite ratio, and like 80 on the sulfite. So we don't want that crispness. We want a softness. Cool. All right. So now we've got our water. Now the very other next thing we need to talk about is food safety, because we're not doing alcohol fermentation. So we're not, there's no alcohol. The pathogens could live in this stuff. So the next thing you want to do is acidify that water. And what was interesting to me is they actually acidify before they add the boil hops. And when the boil hops, they're shooting for 7 to 8 IBUs. So you're getting a little antibacterial from that, but there's nothing. There's no sugar. There's no residual sugar. There's no balance. There's nothing to balance of. So you want a little bit of bitterness. So 7 to 8, maybe 12 is the max. So target that for your boil hop additions. But they did say adding that acid to lowering the pH. Let's talk about pH real quick. 4.7, I think, is the food safety where we're going for. But what they shoot for is 3.2 to 3.6. So it's low pH. And how you're getting there, let's talk about that real quick. Lactic acid and malic acid and citric acid is kind of what they're playing with. So it's kind of this different types of acids. And I've played around with those as well. I love dropping acid. So played with the acid. So you'll get citric acid, has a flavor. Malic acid has a flavor. Lactic acid has a flavor. So it's really kind of what what you like. At the end of the day, they're doing a blend, right? And I found blends to be the best too. If you got lactic acid, that works, but citric acid, and even playing with things like limes and stuff like that. So a good pH meter, lemons, maybe even some zest, some coriander, things like that. Now I'm just going off on a tangent. That's not the hot refresher. But, just think about layering flavors. Okay. So they acidify prior to adding the bittering hops because they found that you get, and it's true. It's if you plug it into your software and play around with that, your BUs, you get less utilization from having a higher acidic environment. So there was something to that you could recreate and play with in software. But it was an eye-opening thing for me. I'm like, oh, wow. But here's the next thing. Okay, so now we've deaerated the water. We've acidified it. We've got some bitterness, very low bitterness. The whirlpool hops is all about what you want. And hop cool pooling. Everybody whirlpool, get it down to 180, but even lower than that, 160, do a cool pool. And so you're pulling out all these oils and these great flavors and aromas and things like that, but no bitterness. We don't want any bitterness. The other thing they're doing that was kind of interesting to me, or that we did on that one, hop dipping. So you're actually steeping your hops, and you're going to love this one, JP, because what this does is it gets rid of the grassiness.
There we go.
It drives off that lawnmower. So hop dipping prior to adding that into your cool pool, your whirlpool, thing like that. So that's a big piece of it. But then here's the real eye-opening thing for me is you're pitching yeast. So they're actually pitching yeast and doing biotransformation, because that's what really just chops those harshness. It makes those piney, danky, and it turns them into fruit flavors, kind of these really, like fruity, kind of enjoyable. And that's why there's just something different about hoppy refresher. And if you look on the can, they say brewer's yeast on there. So they're telling you kind of the secret there.
Do you know if the strain of yeast matters? It can't, right?
They're just used. No. I mean, and I would go towards what all the studies on biotransformation and thiols it will tell us. So any of those strains that are going to be better at biotransformation are going to be more expressive. Doesn't matter. I used a lot of mine. I haven't done a ton of testing on the yeast. Like I used 01, no problem. Cali, and
sure.
You get biotransformation from it. Not as much as like a thiolized, strain or something like that. So that's something to play with, and I would encourage your listeners to play with that as well.
So there's no fermentation, but
there is now. That's what I did with BYO.
Okay.
So I measured. I took 8 ounces of T90 pellet hops, put it in 1 gallon of water, used my trusty handy dandy Anton Parr Easy Dens and measured, and I got that solution was like 102. So there's sugar in hops, so there is something there for the yeast to ferment. So it's non-alcoholic. Yeah, that's why hop creep. Exactly. Yeah. That's hop creep. So there is sugar in hops, and that's like Vinny and all those guys have done studies and they've released data and papers on that there's sugar in hops. So you're getting. And so there is a fermentation. There's also, the oils and things like that. It's non-alcoholic because it's under that 0.004 you're getting. But here's also the key too. I think that little bit of alcohol creates, alcohol is super volatile, creates a better aroma too. So you're getting this aromatic experience because you have alcohol that's volatile and kind of just jumps out of the glass. We're talking
even that little amount
alcohol.
Yeah. Okay.
It's nothing. It's.
I wonder if you'd miss it if it was gone.
I think so. I think. Okay, so at NCHF this last year, which I think I know you were there, Cooper. There was a lot of hop water there, and I made it a point to taste everybody's hop water.
God,
and I
did you survive?
And then that's how you survive too, because I'm not trying to drink a bunch of beer.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So then talking to the people that did fermentation, and then those were like, I just fucking threw some hops in a thing. You could tell the difference. There's definitely something there, from an aroma and from a flavor standpoint. And then I did bench trials too, where I did both for the article. And I'm a proponent of, it's a pain in the ass because now I have to clean a fermenter. I need to, I have to sanitize it. I have to go into it. I have to, ferment it for a couple of days rather than just like boil some hops, throw it in a keg and carbonate it,
Yeah.
But it is worth the effort. And it's selling tremendously well for a lot of places because the biotransformation, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that is interesting. I know Jeremy came on years ago on the session, I think, and mentioned that, like dropped it, where it's like, yeah, we do that, but we found we had to have yeast.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That was the big discovery for me. Yeah, I was like, whoa, that was the moment of like, oh, okay, you got it. It's almost a beer.
Yeah, right. And I will say, Lagunitas Hoppy Refresher was the pinnacle for me, but they went to cans, and that carbonation level dropped. The carbonation level is not the same, and it needs to be
brought that up.
Super carbonated, I think.
Well, that is a quintessential to this style. Think of this as soda. So this needs to be up at like 3 bar, dude.
Right.
This needs to be
it's like more than Coors Light.
Insanely carbonated. And here's a trick I learned. It sounds, I remember when I told Chris Graham about it, he kind of like shit on me. He's like, pour it over freaking ice, man, because that ice, the coldness is going to keep the CO2 in solution and just lead to a better drinking experience. So, treat it just like soda. You're pouring it over crushed ice. Get the good crushed ice, from the little circles in them and stuff like that, preferably if you can.
Yeah, that's wild. Okay, so we're so why do you have to deaerate the water first?
Couple things.
What's that about?
That really, and what they stressed to me was shelf life and flavor stability over time. Because if you have a lot of DO, dissolved oxygen, in your hop water. It's going to muddle those flavors. You're going to see a color change later on, just like you would in beer. You're gonna get muddled flavors. It's really just going to start to not make it enjoyable. So that was the main for them. It was a quality shelf life thing. Is why they're recommending that.
I guess it makes sense, right? Yeah. I mean, dissolve oxygen. I mean, it all gets pushed out in the boil of the beer anyway, and then that's the big sort of resource management side. Once you get to be a certain size of brewery, then you can manage your DO and your cans or your bottles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
how does this hop dipping thing work? What are you exactly doing?
I know that was kind of I'd heard that term before, but I never knew about it, or I never done it. I was like, hop dipping. What are we gonna put some tobacco? We're doing some dip. What the hell are we doing here?
Sheep dip? What?
Sheep dip? Yeah, I was like, oh, that sounds weird. No, but there's tons of information out there on it. Or basically, what you're trying to do is you're driving off. The term escapes me. The grassy, the
most volatile part.
The most volatile, yeah. It's a specific one. It's the grass. You have these different flavor descriptors for hops or different volatiles. So you're driving off the grassy kind of side of things. So you're not getting any of that grassy,
chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll, yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's articles out there on hop dipping, so there's a ton of information. But I'd never really done it before, But that's one of their keys to doing it, and the things they have to do it. They put fill all these hops in, then hit the water, and it just and then pump that into the big into the big vessel.
So just dipping them in water, literally.
Essentially, yeah. In the video, we do it. You could see us doing it, and we're just basically, we're trying to keep a sterile environment again. So you're just collecting some 160 degree water, putting them in a bag, and kind of just you're making tea basically. You're just doing
it's like a steeping thing. Yeah, okay.
It's a steeping thing. Yeah,
that's wild. What a wild concept.
What this brings me back to is I remember when hazy IPAs hit the scene. Everybody's like, "Oh, that's fucking easy. That's that's stupid. There's nothing to it." And then you dig a little deeper, and you're like, wow, they're really hard to make. And there's a lot of artwork and science that goes into this. So it's definitely, the same type of thing for me. Is just wow, it's a lot more complex than you would think.
Yeah, I agree with that, even about the hazy IPAs. But I will say, on the one hand, the consumer learned as well as the commercial brewers. Because when those things first hit, people were like, I don't know what the fuck. It's just fucking gross. There's shit in it. And then along the way,
but there was clearly ones that were better than others.
There were clearly ones, yes. But when those first few that came out, nobody knew how to really do it. And then they fixed it. They dialed it in. It's like it's like a Tesla, where the motherfucker sells them and they just fall apart and people don't know how to. But eventually it's like, oh, we figured it out, and they still haven't. But it's
anybody who's
my
into
bad
tech
analogy.
knows. Anybody who's into tech knows you don't want to be an early adopter, right? You let the other people test.
Right.
You get on the 2.0 version.
Yeah, the fucking hazy IPAs were the alpha version, and then we had to beta test it in the market.
Just leave a bunch of yeast in them. The yeast is what makes it hazy, right?
Yeah, dude, There's all these, kind of just scuttlebutt. But then it's like, oh, then when you really got into it, you're like, oh, wow, there's, to make a good one, it's not easy.
Yeah,
intentional permanent chill haze. It's like adding polyphenols and proteins and getting them to stay. And there are so many things that go into keeping it right, so those flavors stay nice for as long as they can. Then again, with that, limiting oxygen is one of the hugest things, because you get a tiny bit of oxygen in a hazy and it just turns brown like that. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think a hop water is the same way. You want to keep that oxygen out. You want to play with your water profile. It is kind of like that a little.
Well, then the thing about the acidity, I think about beer, being acid, where if you just add hops to water that is neutral pH, it's not like the hop usage that's in a beer. So, regardless of whether you ferment it or not, just putting it in a hot liquid at pH 7, it's going to extract different things, and it's going to play a different way than if you use a more acid, beer-like pH. This is almost set towards sour beer pH or soda pH. So that's.
And then, that was eye-opening for me too, because I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then, like I said, I got home and I immediately plugged into my software, like, okay, like hops, no grain, 7 pH water. Oh, sure enough. Yeah, man, your BUs are altered based on that,
I would look at that and I go, it has to be wrong. You know what I mean?
It must be wrong.
If I hadn't gotten like the background from like someone else about it, I would look at that and be like, this fucking thing doesn't know what the fuck it's talking about. This thing is wrong. It's broken somehow.
Those scientists.
Yeah, what do they know?
Yeah, the formula's obviously out of whack. Yeah,
yeah, it says someone miscarried a fucking decimal point.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I had about hop water. I mean, it seems pretty simple, but also complicated at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, just like beer, man, right? Like, it's simple yet complex. And yet, you could spend probably years mastering. Maybe because there's only one style for hop water. It's hop water, so maybe not maybe not years, but you could spend a year mastering it probably and learning all the different aspects from water to and then you got hop combinations. That's one thing we didn't even talk about, right?
Right. There's that company Hoplark. They do. I don't know if you've seen them around. They do hop waters, but they're okay. They're varietal dependent. So they have like a Sabro varietal. They have a Mosaic one, and they're pretty good. They're right now they're my favorite.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Just because I can't find the bottled version of Hoppy Refresher, and I don't want to drink the canned version because it's not the same to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very good. They're very good. Give them a shot.
I think the hop varietal, that's one other thing you could play with. And I started to allude to it earlier. There's other things too, like coriander and lime zest, things like that you can really play with and have fun too.
There are some flavored ones. Athletic Brewing has a series called Day Pack where it's basically like flavored seltzer water with hops. So they have like the mango one of those is my favorite, where it's like, so you get a little bit of that citrusy tropical fruit thing from whatever hops they add to it. And that's a very good way to do the same thing.
And
the hoppy refreshers, they taste so fruity from the hops
so
only
good,
that you almost could swear there's some fruit in some of those, but I don't think.
Or sugar added or something, right? And it's not.
I will say this, and they were very tongue in cheek about it because we're talking about. I was like, so this is the exact recipe, and they're like, well, look at the can. There's something called natural flavors on there, and they were, they did not tell me what that is, but if anybody knows the food industry, that term gets used pretty lightly and it allows you to do all kinds of things with it. So, but I totally agree. And the ones I brewed, using their recommendation came out, you'd swear there's fruit in there, or like, there's just like some type of like, man, I'm getting mango and lime, and because it's really expressive of the yeast and the hops, man.
That does make sense though, that you could just zhuzh it up a little bit with a couple flavorings of something. Just to accentuate whatever you're pulling from the hops. And especially also if you're making it in volume, it'd probably even everything out too. Because I would imagine it's kind of hard to get hop water consistent batch to batch.
Yeah. And I cannot confirm nor deny, but there was definitely some wink winks, when we were talking about that.
For sure. Yeah.
If we told you, we'd have to kill you.
Yeah. We'd have to kiss you. No one wants that. Okay. Well, I think that's all I had. If anybody has anything else, we'll we'll end the show. We'll be done.
Okay. Well, I was going to say one thing that's worth mentioning that we're talking about. This is like health and wellness movement, and that like there's a whole Sierra Nevada just built a whole building to do non-alcoholic and a whole new brew facility to do non-alcoholic and to do hop water. So like this is it's a huge expanding.
They're doing
segment.
Non-alcoholics?
Yes, they have. I forget what the name of it is, but I just interviewed Ken recently, and they're doing non-alcoholics. They're doing hop waters, and they're betting big on it because they built a whole facility just for that segment.
I mean, if you look at Athletic Brewing, they were on the market a year before they bought a facility in San Leandro. So they got two. Like it's massive. You can do it right. This is what I say. I've said it ad nauseum, but I'll say it again because you've never heard it. Every bar, every craft beer bar should have at least one, if not two NA offerings and one hop water.
I agree.
Everybody should. Nobody does.
Apparently, I haven't been out to Europe in a couple of years, but apparently that's big out there. NA's like everybody's they're having that at lunch, and things like that. So it's
the kind of the original NA, I think.
Yeah.
That's
so
interesting
there's a big
because
movement to that.
Yeah, their hop water for me, their hop splash at Sierra Nevada is too bitter.
More dank. It's more
very bitter. It's very aggressive. I can't do it. My wife
I think
loves
if you're
it.
like
I can't do it.
an IPA person, that's kind of the one you go to.
Yeah.
If you're more of a La Croix kind of one is the hoppy refresher to me, right? Like, it's just a little
I don't
more,
know if I'm insulted or not yet.
I wouldn't be insulted by that.
Yeah,
man. There's nothing wrong with that, dude.
Yeah, LaCroix,
whatever. I love
whatever,
LaCroix.
man. I can't
Going
do
on
it.
record right here. Vito loves LaCroix.
So, Vito, was that new Sierra Nevada facility for non-alcoholic? Is that in Chico also?
Yeah, it's in Chico. Yep, right next door
cool.
over there. Yeah, massive facility. Yeah.
Wow.
Damn,
Wow.
I'm looking forward to that NA. I want to get some of that. I love NA beers, man. I love them. Can't get enough of them. All right, we are done, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning into the show. If you want to get on the show and send your beer in, email Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com. Don't email me because I will mark you as spam and report you to your IP address user.
Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com, and I will rip you a new one when we judge your beer.
You saw what he did to me, guys.
That's right. Yeah.
No. We will treat your beer fairly, and sometimes we're a little off our rockers, but that's okay.
Maybe. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you are listening live for whatever reason, hang tight. We're going to be on with another episode of Dr. Homebrew. And then if you're not, you know what? There's a bunch of other shows. Go find them on the Brewing Network, of course. But go find them. Go listen to them. I don't know what's happening. Who cares? Whatever. We'll see you guys later.